Welcome to American Medicine Today. I'm Kimberly Bonati alongside Ethan Youker. We have an exciting show lined up. Let's get right to it. Disturbing new data has revealed that 70% of young adults are still battling COVID-19 psychological aftermath. And a decorated combat physician is sounding the battle cry for immediate intervention. Joining us to discuss is Air Force Colonel Dr. Josh McConkey, author of the Pulitzer Prize-nominated book, Be the Weight Behind the Spear. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me on the show today. I appreciate it.
You've said that we're witnessing the psychological power keg with Gen Z. Why do you think that is? And how much is really connected to the pandemic?
Boy, you take some bad policy decisions and you take an entire generation that were in their formative years of development. You shut them out of their school, you shut them out of their churches, and they already had communication issues because they were raised with iPhones and iPads. So the communication issues were already pretty bad, and then you just shut them out from society. And I have seen a huge increase in mental health issues, anxiety, depression, and suicide. And was concerned enough to write the book.
Well, also, I mean, I see it daily. I have young nieces and nephews, I mean, as young as 2 up to early 20s. And it seems like these younger generations don't have a lot of social skills. They're glued to their iPhones, their screens, their tablets. Social media, to me, is just awful. I mean, I was on it for years, of course, and then within the past year or two, got off it, and it was the best decision I ever made. You also talk about a silent tsunami of micro traumas. How much of that is connected to all of this screen time that young people are having?
You know, social media, there's certainly pluses and minuses to that. I mean, it's a great technology for messaging and some communications. But unfortunately, for this generation, it's been their entire life. They've never known a world without that. And what they've used it as a substitute for actual communications with real people. I've seen teenagers, I mean, sometimes my children included, they'll sit right next to each other. And instead of having conversation, they'll just text each other on their telephone. So it's a generational gap, and their perception is the reality that this social media is just such a huge part of their life. And so we have to find a way to overcome that. We have to own that issue and adapt and overcome. We can't let them fail.
So, Dr. McConkey, how can we as parents kind of restore social skills and mental health to our kids?
Well, it's surprisingly very simple. It's get involved. I know people are so busy these days. I have 3 kids and we're pulled in 100 different directions, but start simple. Just sit down and have dinner with your family. Ask them how their day went. Ask them if there's any different decisions they could have made that would have changed the outcome of the day. That's how they learn. So you have to take that time and get involved in their sports, their activities, volunteer at their school or their church, or take them to an animal shelter. You know, those animal shelters become emotional support animals for somebody. So just take that time and get involved.
I want to talk about your book, Be the Weight Behind the Spear. Again, as Kimberly said at the top, Pulitzer Prize nominated book. We were talking a little bit for a quick second off air before we went on. You just learned about that, and it's your first book. So congratulations on that. That's pretty impressive. So talk about the book a little bit, and then you actually get into something that you call combat zone wisdom. What is that all about?
So the book, it's my prescription for this problem, this huge rise, the epidemic in the mental health crisis and lack of leadership and resiliency skills for these kids. This is my prescription on how we fix that problem. America's best resource is our people. It always has been. We got to dial back the clock. It's about teachers and coaches, volunteers and families. That's what sets America apart, and that's what's going to help this generation.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with Dr. Josh after this. You are watching American Medicine Today.
Don't be screwed by lesser spine institutes who bait you with minimally invasive procedures, then switch to screws, rods, disc replacements, and hardware. At Bonati, no metal hardware fusions are ever used. Bonati invented the precise tools necessary to minimize surgery, scarring, anesthesia, and recovery. So successful are the Bonati Spine Procedures, they consistently reflect 98.75% patient satisfaction. Over half our patients have suffered from failed back and neck surgeries at other facilities. Bonati succeeds where others fail.
Welcome back to American Medicine Today. We're continuing our discussion with Air Force Colonel Dr. Josh McConkey. How can we kind of break the cycle with young people, our kids, or, well, even adults, let's face it, with the social media induced anxiety?
Boy, those issues right there, you have to teach them that that isn't real life. My children are like dogs. When it turns 4:30, that's when we turn on their screen time. I mean, they are on that screen immediately. So just kind of three tips that you can do to just kind of help your children and guide them through that is age restrictions, number one. Australia has gone to the other extreme and banned social media completely for kids under age 16, I believe. I'm not a big fan of government intervention like that. I think that should be a parent decision, although it's probably a good idea, but that's got to be up to the parent. And then having the time restrictions on there. You cannot give them unfettered access 24 hours a day. It is not good for their mental development. The more interactions they have on social media, studies have shown increased risks of anxiety and depression and, unfortunately, suicide. And then I talk about a little drive-by. So, act like you're interested, at least kind of peeking over the shoulder, ask them some questions, make sure that they know you're going to duck in every once in a while, do that little drive-by audit, make sure they're not doing something that they shouldn't be, and just ask some questions, at least ask like you're interested.
I believe you get into in the book strategies for rebuilding trust in the government, science, and business. Talk about that if you would.
Boy, that right there, that's a huge topic. And there is a large percentage in some studies I had seen, well over half, 60% of Generation Z has a huge distrust in institutions and their government because you shut them out of school, you shut them out of church, you took away their graduations, their proms. There's a cohort that missed out on high school graduation and their college graduation. So they really have that distrust. It's going to take personal interactions, reaching out, mentoring to win them back. Think about your high school experience and just how formative that was for you. If you just erase that completely, you sat on a computer screen, it's not good. So it can only be done face to face.
Do you think that this generation is hopeless, or is there hope for this generation? Because as we've mentioned, just the way they've been brought up with all of this new technology and social media and this, that, and the other, we've never seen anything like this throughout history. I tend to be a pessimist, and I think, wow, what's going to happen to the next couple of generations? Do we have hope?
America has been through worse. Great Depressions, World War II. We will find a way to overcome this, but you have to own that problem. You can't kick the can down the curb. It doesn't do any good to pass the blame. We have to solve this problem. We've put man on the moon. We've done some amazing things. We have to solve this problem. We have to find a way. So it's not hopeless. It just takes a concerted effort from a community, and we have to dial back the clock to when people actually were involved. Social media, it's great in some respects, but we have to get involved face to face.
Which is something we're going to have to program these children to be about, really part of a family, not just communicating via text and as a passerby as they're on their way to some activity that the parents don't join in. Thank you so much for being on the program, Air Force Colonel Dr. Josh McConkey. Thank you for being on the show and to talk about your Pulitzer Prize nominated book, Be the Weight Behind the Spear.
Thank you very much.
Well, that's all the time we have for this segment. Make sure you stay tuned. We'll have more after the break. You are watching American Medicine Today.
I had a tree fall on me in June of 1983, and I crushed the fourth lumbar vertebrae, fractured the third and fifth. I got a big fusion from L2 to L5 in my back, and it's just given me a lot of grief. My right leg was completely numb, and I was doing what they call it, a foot drop or something like that, where I slapped my foot when I walked, and it was getting hard to walk. I was also getting spasms clear across the low back, both sides. They just about dropped me to my knees.
That's when Warren started conservative treatments to ease his pain.
We tried a bunch of stuff. We tried epidural steroids, which helped a little bit, but not for very long. Physical therapy did nothing for me. Sometimes made it worse. Chiropractor was, I wouldn't say it was not helpful, but it wasn't anything that would fix it, It was finally getting where it wasn't tolerable anymore for me. So that's when I I went to another surgeon that wanted to break my fusion and do some stuff and put more pins and rods. And I was just like, I don't think that's what I need.
Not wanting to endure more invasive surgery, Warren started researching for alternatives.
I did a Google search, Bonati popped up, and I just made the call.
Based off of what he learned, he sent his images in for an evaluation to determine if he was a good candidate for the exclusive Bonati Spine Procedures.
I just sent my MRI and CT scan down, and I don't remember the guy's name that reviewed it now. It was in 2017. So anyway, they did a review of it and said they thought they could probably help me.
Hearing the good news, Warren made an appointment for an in-person evaluation and scheduled his procedures.
I walked in and I was greeted by some really nice people after our discussion and him looking over the MRI and CT scan. I felt very comfortable that he could repair it.
Warren tells us about his previous spinal fusion surgery and compares it to the targeted Bonati Spine Procedures.
The fusion spine was terrible. I had to walk with either a walker or crutches for probably most of a year after that, and coming from a real active person that, I've worked in the woods logging and to being able to barely walk, it was kind of tough. I wore a full body back brace for 9 months after that one. So I've had 2 Bonati surgeries. The first one I had relief from my numb leg right after. I mean, the next day it was like it was complete different deal when I went back to talk to him. And then after the second surgery, immediately, right as soon as I got up off the table, I was ready to go.
Warren shares how he feels years after his patented Bonati Spine Procedures.
I can get around better. I can walk. I don't have the constant pain and the spasms that were really bad. My leg isn't numb anymore. And it's just a whole lot better than it used to be.
Now Warren is back to fishing in his boat and enjoying life, all pain-free.
I think it's still pretty good. I get around a lot better than I used to. And then I go fishing, as you probably noticed. I had my boat picture up earlier, but I usually fish every weekend, and I don't have the issue of being in the boat where before the rocking of the boat, or if it got rough out, it would trigger those spasms I was getting.
To see more stories of recovery just like this, search for the Bonati Spine Institute on YouTube, Rumble, Apple's App Store, Google's Play Store, Roku, and Amazon's Fire TV. Welcome back to American Medicine Today. I'm Kimberly Bonati alongside Ethan Youker. Today we have the honor of speaking with a former Navy SEAL who is credited with firing the shot that killed Osama bin Laden. Please welcome Robert J. O'Neill to the show, author of the best-selling memoir, The Operator.
Thank you for having me, Kimberly. Thank you, Ethan.
Now, you were part of Navy SEAL Team 2 and 4, and then I think you were the legendary SEAL Team 6. So can you kind of take us back to those early years and tell us what it was like to be a SEAL Team warrior?
Well, of course, yeah. I joined the Navy just on a whim because I tried to join the Marine Corps because I wanted to get out of Montana. And the Marine recruiter was not in the office, but the Navy guy was, and it was that simple. I asked him where the Marine was. He said, "Why do you want the Marine?" I said, "I want to be a sniper." He said, "Look no further. We have snipers in the Navy. You need to be a SEAL first, sign here." And I figured, okay. Didn't know how to swim, joined the Navy. Once I got to SEAL training, very difficult to get through. About 85% of the guys that try out don't make it. I fortunately did because I know how to make small goals into big goals. And then I was offered to pick SEAL teams on the East Coast or the West Coast. I picked the East because it was pre 9/11, and that's what that's the even number teams 2, 4, 8, and 10, because they were going to Bosnia, and that was the only thing going on in the world. So I figured I'd go to SEAL Team 2, stay there for a few years, go back to Montana. But I did 4 years there, traveling around Europe and the world and Africa, stuff like that. And then I met the guys. I was young. 4 years flew by, and I was like, I'll just stick around. So I re-enlisted, and then 9/11 happened. And that's when I decided to go to SEAL Team 6, which is also on the East Coast. The premier team, it's the Tier 1 unit. And I went there just because they were going to get the most work, the most daring work. So I went to SEAL Team 6. Very difficult to get into. About maybe 2% of Navy SEALs try out, and half of those don't make it. I don't know what the numbers are, but they're the guys that will get the most daring missions. So I put myself in a position to be available, and I found myself on the mountain when we rescued the lone survivor, Marcus Luttrell. I was the lead jumper on my birthday, Good Friday, April 10, 2009, to rescue Captain Richard Phillips. And then I was one of 23 guys to fly into Osama bin Laden's compound, and we killed him actually 14 years ago.
Like you mentioned, you were involved in attempts to rescue lone survivor Marcus Luttrell. You were even abducted by those Somali pirates. Can you tell us how all of that was linked and eventually culminated in the bin Laden raid?
Well, I have a saying, it's not mine, but it's my favorite. Wherever you are, be there. So be in the moment, and stuff can happen. I went to SEAL Team 6 just on a whim, just like I joined the Navy on a whim. And it's a butterfly effect, like anything. Even right now, the littlest decisions you make will affect everything in 20, 30 years. I tell my daughters that if that Marine recruiter wasn't at Arby's at 11:30 on a Wednesday, you wouldn't be alive. That's how major some of your decisions are. So I was just available. I happened to be in the right place a lot of different times. I've actually had some Army friends call me the Forrest Gump of the Navy, only I'm not as good looking and I can't run as fast. I don't know how to take that. But then when the bin Laden raid came up, I was one of the most experienced guys available, and I was picked. And in 16 years in the Navy at that point, I had never once taken a break. So when they needed guys, they picked 23 guys with about 400 missions each. We all had every qualification, a lot of redundancy. And, like we almost did at the beginning, lose half. We could have finished it with half the guys because everyone knew everyone else's job. So again, very fortunate and lucky to be an honor to be called to be part of that team. But everyone on that team could do everyone's job, and we did a really good job, even though it started off horribly.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with Robert J. O'Neill after this. You are watching American Medicine Today.
The loss of coordination in my legs, I'd trip over my feet, end up flat in the concrete. Dr. Bonati to me was God sent.
Walk like that in a while. I don't remember how long.
I didn't have to make a massive lifestyle change. I noticed today that I could sit and stand up without a cane. I would have to give it excellent and above my expectations.
Visit AskBonati.com.
Welcome back to American Medicine Today. We're continuing our discussion with the man who killed Osama bin Laden. Why don't you walk us through the days leading up to the Osama bin Laden raid? And you were the one that fired the shot that took him out. Was that a part of the mission?
No, that wasn't planned at all. One thing I say also is don't talk yourself into an ass whipping. And that means don't make everything too complicated. Just master the basics. Get really good at the easy stuff. And like when people ask me, how did you clear bin Laden's compound? It was so big. I'll say, if the guy in front of me went left, I went right. And we did that over and over. And that's it. And we just got to that spot. But when we got picked, they brought us in a room and said, this is not a drill. This is real. We found a thing in a house, in a bowl, in a country. You're going to go get that thing and bring it back and show it to us. And we said, okay, what's the thing? Can't tell you. What country? Can't tell you. Finally, they drove us somewhere and we met the bin Laden team. We didn't know who it was at first, but they were agents I'd never seen before. One of whom came up, who was a female, the leader, and she was with the commanding officer, SEAL Team 6. And he said, the reason you guys are here is this is as close as we've ever been to Osama bin Laden. And we looked around the room and we're like, we're all professionals. We're not high-fiving. We're like, cool, can we go now?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No. And so we had about 2 weeks to train on it. We didn't need to train. We already knew what we were doing, but we wanted to show the powers that be as an option. You can send us. And actually, President Obama said, I was never convinced bin Laden was there, but after seeing you guys, I was convinced you could go in, find out, and come back.
I understand. I've actually watched several documentaries about it, and things got pretty hairy, right? As you came in, I think, didn't one of the choppers clip the wall or something in it? Walk us through what happened, because that's what I remember. It got pretty hairy.
It didn't clip the wall.
Okay.
There was an updraft, and the weather was different, and it was a new aircraft to us anyway, not to the aliens who invented it. But the pilot couldn't hold a hover, and he realized if he powered up, he would flip it and kill everyone. But if you put the tail on the wall and pin the nose in the dirt, he might be able to save everyone. And he made that decision in the blink of an eye, and it worked. We knew from preparation where everything was. We tried some explosives, but there were fake doors, stuff like that that's really weird. Like, no one does that. He's in there. And then we went to blow another door. I didn't know they crashed. And I said, hey, this is so-and-so. We're going to blow up the carport. And someone said, don't, we'll just open it. And a door opened and a thumb came out, thumbs up with a glove that I recognized. Because I was put off outside, I had a front row to the most important mission in modern history. I got to see guys do cool stuff. Knowing the house could blow up when I was in it, looking for bombs, but watching my guys and just being proud of them, like, this is not affecting them at all. They know they could die right now, but they're doing their job. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Escalate is necessary. We went up some stairs. We ran into Khalid bin Laden. Point man killed him. Got to the second floor. Everyone split up to, clear the other spaces. And it was down to two of us, one guy in front of me and me. And his job was to look up. My job was to wait for more guys. But he was saying something like, we got to go. They're suicide bombers, but we can beat them. We got to go now. And I remember looking at him, and I can close my eyes and see this. And it wasn't bravery on my part. It was like, okay, we're going to blow up now, and I'm tired of thinking about it. So I squeezed him, which means go. He went up the last set of stairs, and he moved the curtain. This curtain was kind of acting like a door. And that's when he sort of jumped on these two people that he thought were suicide bombers, which is amazing to me because he jumped on a grenade that didn't go off. And because, like I said at the beginning, he went left, I went right. There's Osama bin Laden standing there 3 feet in front of me with his hands on his wife Amal's shoulders, who was in front of him. I was surprised how tall he was, taller than me, but skinny. He's not surrendering. That's his nose. He's a threat. He's a suicide bomber. You got to shoot him in the face. I made that decision in about half a second, so I shot him 3 times in the face. And then he fell down, and I moved his wife out of the way. I killed bin Laden at the foot of his bed, and I moved her back to the bed. But then other SEALs came in, and I'm sort of having a moment, and one guy came up to me, one of my guys, and said, hey, you good? And I said, yeah, what do we do now? And he kind of smiled at me and said, well, now we find the computers. We do this every night, hundreds of times. And I said, yeah, you're right, I'm back. Wow. And he said, yeah, you just killed Osama bin Laden. Your life just changed. Now get to work.
What was your life like, in the weeks and months and years after the fact?
Well, I mean, that was the greatest event we'd ever done in the history of the teams. One of the greatest events in our military history. So we were all on cloud nine. And I remember thinking, we are all going to be best friends forever. Like there's no stopping us. And then in the same year, 2011, August 6th, helicopter extortion 17 was shot down. We lost 31 Americans, 17 of our guys, and morale just took a dump. We went from planning missions to planning funerals. And so that really affected everyone negatively. So, it was great. Then it was terrible. And then that's when I considered it might be time to move on. I've done my things, and it only takes a bullet needs to be right once. And I want to see my daughters get married one day.
Amen.
I got to read this book.
Yeah.
It's an amazing story. Mm-hmm.
It's it. The best way to get it is robertjoneil.com, because I will personalize it and sign it. And I'm talking about the funniest stuff you can think of or the most serious stuff. And I personalize it because like the humanity, I'm a human like everyone else. And I appreciate people buying my book. But the best one I got so far was a dude was buying one for his buddy for his birthday. And he had me sign, Jeff, you kill it selling mattresses like I killed bin Laden. Love, Rob.
That's awesome.
Never lose your sense of humor.
Well, it takes a special person to do what you did. And thank you for sharing your incredible story of bravery, you and the rest of your
SEAL Team 6. Yeah.
God bless you guys. I can't even imagine being face to face with Osama bin Laden and pulling that trigger not once, but 3 times.
America thanks you, sir.
Amen.
Well, you're very welcome. And don't forget, they're still out there doing the job as we speak.
That's right.
Indeed. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Robert J. O'Neill.
Thank you so much.
Take great care. Well, that wraps up this edition of American Medicine Today. If you would like to see previous episodes, make sure you add American Medicine Today to your favorite streaming device.
If you have any comments or questions, contact us at the numbers below. Or you can tweet at Dr. Bonati using the hashtag American Medicine Today or hashtag AMT. We would like to hear from you.